20 points, 10 boards, 4 steals, 3 assists. And I'll tell you this, Mike, that was the first time I think this year that we saw the Illinois version of Coleman, the best version of Coleman in a Kansas State uniform.
Yeah, it's the beauty. It's the beauty of the start of conference play, because everybody's got hope at this point that you can try to make a run at this thing. And for Kansas State, this felt like the first game. We'll call it against a high major opponent that they played like a unit. And Coleman Hawkins was a big reason for that. He's the one that ties it all together. And for him, like, the more this team meshes, the better Coleman is going to be, because of the imprint that he has on what they do offensively and what they do defensively. So just watching him over the years, I watched a lot of games of him at Illinois. When you understand how to play and how to play with him, he's going to make you better. Because if you make it a point of emphasis to cut off the ball, he's going to find you. If you put your head down and run and transition when he gets a defensive rebound, he'll hit ahead, he'll find you, he'll get you easy transition looks. If you learn to trust defensively, he can cover up a multitude of sins, because I think he's one of the best help defenders probably in college basketball, just because of his IQ and his feel. So that was a classic Coleman Hawkins game because of, again, his fingerprints being all over it. But for this Kansas State team, I don't think they're the most talented team in the world by any means, but it's amazing what you can overcome when you play your ass off and you play confidently. Cincinnati out-rebounded them. Cincinnati shot it better than them. And it just didn't matter, because from the beginning of the game, they made an emphasis: we're going to disrupt you defensively, and we're going to get into the paint offensively, get to the free throw line, and get easy baskets. So, I mean, it's a heck of a win for Kansas State. It's their first high major win of the year, and it comes at a really good time here to start conference play.
Yeah, and I thought it wasn't just Coleman, right? It was Doug McDaniel as well. Doug McDaniel had 17 points. He did have 6 turnovers, but his ability, Jarrell, to make something happen, to put the ball on the floor, to create off the bounce, I think is a real difference maker for this team. And again, he played 5 minutes the other night against, I think, was it Wichita State? He has not quite been what at least I expected him to be. And when I thought of Kansas State heading into this season, Jarrell, this is what I thought of. Doug McDaniel getting to the rim, creating shots, making stuff happen the way that he did, and Coleman Hawkins having this level of impact on a basketball game.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And you could kind of see it just right from the jump. Obviously, as we already kind of spoke to, this was a make or break spot, it felt like, for Kansas State. And hopefully this win is able to take a little bit of the edge and some of the pressure off with these guys. But you can see it right from the tip, though, that Coleman, Hawkins, and McDaniels were engaged. They came out early. Hawkins hit some early outside shots, which is always a good sign whenever he's able to stretch the floor and get his three-pointer working. And McDaniel was super aggressive as well, too. And just those two kind of led the charge offensively, just getting that crowd involved into the game early on, making some early shots and just being aggressive and playing off of one another. And those other guys did a great job as well, too, chipping in and doing all the little things, making shots when they need to, and also getting paint touches when they needed to as well. But this is the team I felt like that we've been expecting, everybody's kind of been waiting for. So, like, hopefully, like, sort of like Mike said, it's just at this time of year, everybody still has hope. You can still go out there at the end of the day and win your conference and get into the dance. So it's still early in the year, and you're going to have a ton of opportunities with a team like them being in the Big 12. So hopefully, like I said, this alleviates a little bit of the pressure, because regardless of what people think or say, man, it's a ton of pressure. When you spend that type of money on guys and you create a roster like that in 1 year, you have a ton of turnover. It's a lot of pressure on those guys to produce and perform. And, with this day and age with social media, there's so much added stuff with people, they kind of count in their pockets and how much that we giving this guy to do this. And, every time you have a bad game, you're going to kind of hear about it. So long as they're able to keep their head above water, be aggressive. But it's going to take those two guys leading the charge and doing this consistently, man. So they still got hope, a huge resume win for them tonight, and let's see where they can take it from here.
Well, Jarrell, on that point, if you are Jerome Tang, how do you get that out of them consistently? How do you make sure that this is the Doug McDaniel you get and this is the Coleman Hawkins you get? We've already seen some of the issues that they've had with bringing the roster together, I guess, is maybe the way that you say it. Obviously, Ashore is no longer on that roster. So, like, what can you do to be able to make sure that this is the group that you have and this is the way that they play?
I mean, in my opinion, just on the coaching side of things is, you got to try to do everything you can to make that locker room and those guys as loose as possible. And I don't mean loose in a sloppy way. I just mean loose as in those guys aren't playing tight. Like when you play tight, everybody knows this basketball is a rhythm game. And when you play tight, bad things happen, especially when you're talking about your best players. So if they're feeling the pressure, that's going to kind of trickle down throughout the rest of the team. So I know Coach Tang, for the most part, I'm sure he's had conversations with those guys, and he's just, trying to lighten the mood some and let those guys know them, that he has their back, that they kind of in it together, and just to go out there and be aggressive and do what they do. They whatever money that they demanded, they got that money for a reason. And they thought highly enough to give it to them, and they thought they would make an impact for their team. So, just go out there and play your game. Don't try to be something that you're not. They got the guys that they wanted, and you just got to go out there and do that and be who you are. So I'm sure he's just trying to lighten the mood as much as possible. And like I said, it's always a little bit easy after a big statement win against a ranked team on your home court. So that helps everything. And these are the type of games that can be for a team like this, because they have the talent. We know they have the talent. But this type of game like right here could be just like the turning point for their season, and they can kind of come back and battle throughout the Big 12 and see what they can get done.
Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think Jarrell hit a lot of really good points there. Just when you look at like the psyche of a team, when you come into the season and there's certain expectations, when it's pretty publicized, the amount of money that was spent on the team, the expectations that follow that, and then you kind of have this identity crisis to start a season. And there's a number of teams in college basketball that have gone through this where you're like, hey, are we not who we thought we were going to be? And guys start questioning themselves as players. Guys start questioning the team as a unit. And then sometimes it takes a win like this where you can go sit in the film room and say, you know what, this is what it looks like when guys are assertive. This is what it looks like when guys are playing confidently and we're getting into you defensively, and we're disruptive and we're creating turnovers and getting out in transition. Like, that's fun. That's just fun basketball. And the more you see that, the more you put that on film and feel that, the more you want to try to replicate it. And so, they've done some trimming down as the season has gone on. I think we've seen that. And look, you touched on Doug McDaniel too. Doug McDaniel, I think he really could be one of the more electric guards in college basketball. Like, he really could be. He's got the touch, he's got the speed, the burst to get by you. He's crafty. It's just with him, it's always been, at times it's a lack of focus. At times it's being loose with the ball. We saw that a little bit tonight too. But the reality is, like, that dude needs to play for them because he's one of their only advantage creators. Like that, he can get by you and he can get downhill, get into the paint. Now you got Husson, you got these other guys able to step out, shoot threes. Coleman, you could call an advantage creator just from his IQ, and you saw him exploiting mismatches tonight. But that's kind of it. So you really need those guys to be playing at a high level every single game. They don't have the luxury of like, hey man, we're six deep with advantage creators. So those guys need to be good. And if they are, maybe you make a run at this thing in the Big 12. And I'm not saying win the Big 12, but just continue to stack wins and see if you can find yourself around that bubble come March.